Hello and welcome to the Story Engine podcast. My name is Kyle Gray, and today on the show we have Rubina Chadha. Rubina is a master at helping you regulate your nervous system and your emotions in high intensity situations, whether you're in a corporate office, whether you are leading a business as an entrepreneur, or just facing the everyday challenges of relationships, life, family, and health. We're going to discover some very practical ways to do that, and we're going to create a story for Rubina that showcases her brilliance in a brand new way. So without any further ado, let's hand it over to Rubina Chadha. Rubina Chadha, welcome to the Story Engine podcast.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I am excited to have you on the show today. The topic that you're an expert in is something close to all of our hearts and minds. But before we get into the goodness of the episode, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you're showing up in the world today.
I am the founder of Inner Design, and I am bringing practices that include mindfulness and creativity to help people regulate their nervous systems in corporate situations, in educational institutions, and across the board in people's homes, wherever they are.
Mm-hmm. Some of the biggest listeners to this show, we do have people that work in corporate, and we have a lot of people who are creative. There are authors, there are coaches, there are leaders and health experts. And I'm sure that a lot of these things apply to them as well in high stress, high intensity, high stakes environments. Tell us a little bit about your perspective. What is creativity and mindfulness in a big picture?
Yes, I actually come across this a lot with people. They're like, I'm not a creative, or I'm not artistic, or I don't know how to express those kind of things. But I think of creativity as an energy that we all carry. The fact that we are walking and talking and functioning makes us creative beings. And what I mean by that is how we go about things, how we make choices, is accessing creative problem solving, how our brain thinks, how our mind is able to, address and meet every challenge is basically accessing creative energy that we have within in order to get through our day to day. And mindfulness is becoming aware, becoming present, and living from a place that allows that presence to walk alongside of us so that we don't get lost in the busyness of our mind or, the outward senses. I always talk about how we walk around kind of like disembodied, like we're just this decapitated head. All of our senses, or most of our senses, are up here. Our mind is constantly churning and thinking and providing us information and data. And we forget that we are fully the rest of us, our full body. Most of it is here in our torso. And then we, maneuver around with our limbs, and we don't really work from that place in an aligned way, in a fully embodied way. And so bringing some gentle awareness and some simple practices gets us to be fully aligned people that we can, use that creative energy for our life, for us to be able to build whatever it is we're building.
I find that when I am facing stress of one form or another, that I immediately gravitate toward my mind. I try to understand the problem to beat the problem, and understanding or gaining insight in order to not feel the pain of the situation of one form or another. And I think this was something I learned from a very young age with parents who, for one reason or another, weren't very able to deal with the emotions of a child. And so I learned to not to shut down or ignore these parts and to just be in my head. And while I think, like, for myself and a lot of the people that I've worked with, this is very useful and practical for quite a long time. Helps us succeed in school, helps us succeed in college, and it helps us succeed in the relatively early stages of being an entrepreneur, where you have to Gary Vaynerchuk grind hard to get things off the ground. But eventually there is a threshold and a limit to this that stops you from being able to really get past, where your ability to outwork or outthink your own problems is no longer can meet the challenges of the scale of what you're doing, whether it's leading a team or the complexity of these things, or simply just burning yourself out by overtaxing one part of your system without going anywhere else. Tell us a little bit, like this sounds like a pretty common thing that most people are experiencing and dealing with.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you just told my story basically right here in this little intro. And I think that I come across people all the time, highly successful CEOs, founders of companies who have the same story. And so it's very common. Yes, we all face this at some point or the other, and we're really not equipped. And you mentioned, okay, maybe it's our families, it's in our life, in our home, it's in schools, but really nobody actually teaches us how to maneuver and get through stress in life. And it's just compounded on just power through it, or mindset stuff. And this is coming at it from a different way, is coming through your own body and understanding how you were designed, what you are energetically, meaning how much energy do you have to deal with things, and where can you, listen to other parts of your body on how to solve problems. Like you said, we're just walking around with it. We were told, make these decisions quickly, think it over, all of these things, which seem logical. And unfortunately, our families, our places of education, our society are also not educated or not prepared. And we've just been in this constant production and outcome driven culture across the world. And I think that that's changing as people kind of pause to take a look and see how aligned this is, how possible it is to keep going the long haul, using those kind of techniques, just mind-based. There's that saying, you can't solve a problem from the state of mind that created that problem, or that you're living in that problem from. You need to kind of step out of that. What does that actually mean? Do we just kind of think, oh, now we're floating above our head? And, what are the processes to actually get to those solutions for those problems? We are totally not prepared as humanity. And I think it's time for people, and people know that as they start to tap into the rest of their body, tap into what that means in a bigger picture for them, and have those visceral somatic experiences, that they're able to handle stresses and pressures in a different way. And I don't mean slow down or, jump the system. Maybe we're in the system, and how can we run a little better on, not on pressure, but on presence.
Before we get into the solutions, I would like to explore the consequences of this kind of operation, and I'll share just some of the highlights that I've experienced over the years. I attribute having an autoimmune condition as one of my, there's lots of reasons, and there are things of traveling in South America and having digestive issues and all of these kinds of things. But I believe that my lack of ability to be present or to regulate in the ways that you're describing has led to big health consequences. And also recently, my inability to deal with my grief, or face the grief and the pain and uncertain or painful conversations, has led to major relationship issues that I found myself trying to avoid a mildly difficult conversation, and then had 10 extremely difficult conversations as a result, that in some ways I'm grateful for, because I think that somebody like me can only learn when I get hit with a situation so great that it finally shakes me out of it, because I've been able to distract myself from so many things. But health consequences, business consequences, relationship consequences. And this whole podcast is 400 plus case studies of people who have been ignoring this and face a catastrophe great enough for them to wake up and change. What other consequences do you see or are common in the people that you work with?
I think you said it. Health is the first thing. And like we've all heard, right? Health is wealth. What does that really mean? Can we really function without our health? And what you're talking about with your immune system and the experience that you had, if you go to any doctor, right, any specialist, they're going to say the number one thing to autoimmune issues is stress. And they just talk about stress management like it's something to deal with through our mind. And let's just put more pressure on our mind to do what it's already not supposed to be doing and control this thing. And then that's only impounding the stress, I think, unfortunately. And definitely, once we're stressed, we're at the level of stress, physical stress, pain, whether it's physically or emotionally, it's really hard to make choices and decisions. And I think that when we think of high level, whatever it might be, creatives or founders or, educators or whatever it might be, like I said, C-suite, C-level, companies, they are the most pressure that they actually face is decision making. And how can we make decisions when we are physically out of whack or physically unaligned and under pressure? And then it just keeps building from that. Okay, am I making the right decision for me? Am I making the right decision for my company? There's people relying on me, down the line. That kind of thing, you'll see those collapses happen when somebody's bracing their body, these leaders, just going through anxiety, having to be on maybe more medications that are, again, putting more pressure, not solving the problem, just dealing with the symptoms. And, this whole thing becomes this horrible cycle that's, unresolved, unfortunately.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about your process and what you do that's different or unique that you would like to highlight that helps us not necessarily get better results, but get what makes the process more fun to get the results.
Yeah, I really believe in getting the mind out of the way without being angry at the mind, without being like, shut off those thoughts. Sometimes you're in this meditation and the thoughts are coming. That's what the mind is supposed to do. And instead of just being at peace with them or understanding how to be in flow with them, or just like, oh no, all these thoughts, how do I stop them up? So I believe in two main foundations that really help, I think, in the entry points of mindfulness practices that I've seen success with is addressing the nervous system and the overload by going through creative expression. So what does that mean? We're not going to sit down and paint our masterpiece at a sip and paint and feel relaxed because we had wine and we painted with our best friends. Like everybody walked away with a painting of a giraffe or a dolphin or whatever that looks the same. Nobody wants to hang in their living room. That's not what I'm talking about when I say creative expression. It's simple things that we did even from very young in childhood, or that people do unknowingly, sometimes doodling or journaling or just expressing, going through the motion of that creative expression without looking at it for an outcome, without thinking this giraffe was painted perfectly or my dolphin looks just like the neighbor's dolphin. Just going through that expression and breath work. That breath work is one of the top, easiest, most available entry points for mindfulness. And it's not about having these huge breathwork experiences like you see people go on retreats. It's just understanding what's happening. When you realize that when you can look at a child, when they are under some kind of stress, they will throw their tantrum and they will let off the emotion and move on. And we have lost contact with that. And so our emotions stay stuck with us because we don't just stomp our feet and that is actually a breathwork technique of letting off stress, of just letting the breath come out. We feel like that is not acceptable socially. So what have we done? We've disconnected from our natural nervous system ability to let off that steam. And, crying, you don't cry after a certain age or without a reason or without some purpose. Those are ways to help the brain, the body, the nervous system offload stress. And we know that because chemicals get released when we cry. We feel like, it's a cleansing of our soul or whatever it might be. It actually is a physical response that we have kind of pushed away and said, I don't want to deal with that. And then we come to the situation where we're like, I can't now deal with whatever it is at hand. And I don't want to deal with that either, right? Once it's gotten so jammed up in a sense. So understanding those simple things, understanding it with knowledge and getting, a grasp of understanding what breath work is. What can I do? What kind of breath does a child have when they're crying? Maybe if I can mimic that, I can offload the stress. Maybe if I take an opportunity to, when I smell a flower and you feel this beautiful uplifted feeling, that in love feeling, you can actually, you can trigger that yourself. You can decide. Taking in those longer inhales and having them lighter. What is it going to do in my body and my brain and my whole chemistry? The signals it's going to send is going to be the access point for me to release that stress. So getting those concepts down, but learning how to practice them is what really is going to be the solution, to these problems.
And what's on the other side of this? Like, what's at stake here? Maybe for an individual in a corporate, or a leader in a business, or what for the world as a whole right now? What's possible on the other side for us if we can master these things?
First of all, it's awareness, right? It's just understanding we have access to our emotions. We can actually regulate these things without concept, right? So then moving into that awareness, giving, that access to ourselves and the ability opens up a different door where I think that people start to understand their bodies and their beings and what we're doing here. It's more than, like we were saying earlier, it's more than just this woo-woo or spiritual experience. It's actually a physiological experience that you're going to have access to. And then the next steps, I think it's unlimited what will happen. But being able to decide, okay, I'm going into this meeting and I'm regulated, and I know there are stresses maybe outside the door that I will handle, but I'm aware so I can manage myself and get through these steps one at a time, right? Without having to feel that overwhelming under pressure, loss of the access to our nervous system, what it's supposed to be doing, regulating us.
Yeah. Can you tell me about a time when you were experiencing the extremes of this dysregulation, whether it was a health issue, physical pain, relationship problems, or business or financial issues? When specifically were you like at the deepest depths of this challenge?
Unfortunately, many times. I'll be the first to admit it. Unfortunately, many times. One of the main things that I did see was in the workplace. It was easy for me to kind of separate and see, okay, in this business situation, this is really causing stress that I can't resolve without me getting my full self online. So that, I think, is really where the entry point came for me, or when the practice really started to make a difference. But definitely in family life, in day-to-day life, in home life, in relationships, in friendships, in parenting, all of those, I would say there's times when there's struggles. And now they still happen. It's not like struggles stop from the outside, but now I can actually pause and say, oh, maybe I was 5 minutes into this, and okay, wait, I need to just kind of take a step back. I need to pause for myself. I need to, let go of searching for the solution through my mind and through the pushing and all that stuff, because we are trained, unfortunately, that way, in our families, in our homes, and in the educations and the systems that are in the workplace. Everyone's doing that. So it kind of becomes automatic.
You're
but
doing it right now.
Yes,
You're
right
talking
now.
about the solution. I want to hear about a Tuesday afternoon where you were so stressed out, and I want to know what it felt like, and I want to know what room you were sitting in, and I want to know one of these very specific moments where this occurred for you.
Okay. I will say, recently actually, I became an empty nester. I moved my adult son, who just turned to be an adult, like within a week, turning out to be an adult, to a university, and it all happened probably within 2 or 3 weeks. So the opportunity came up, and of course it's exciting, and all the feelings that should be felt are there, right? And then realizing, oh my gosh, here's the reality that I have to deal with. I actually have to prepare everything that needs to happen in the short amount of time within 3 weeks. I think most people prepare a year ahead of time, or they have 6 months or whatever it was. And in our situation, he's always been lucky to have these opportunities come and like spin like a top and just, okay, are you going to dive into this? Okay. So what happened for me was realizing, oh, this is an opportunity for me to actually take a step back. But like the mom in me, mom bear, like a week ago, I had a 17-year-old who was staying at home and doing community college. And all of a sudden this is the launching, pad for him. This is the opportunity for him to really take off and have his flight. And, am I going to let myself get in the way? So just having that dynamic in my mind of like, yes, I want this to happen. Yes, I'm excited for him, but also I'm really nervous and I'm really scared, and the worries and all of the things and the habits of running everything and holding it all together.
How did you find out? Did it come in the mail? Did it come in a call? Did you find out first, or he find out first? Who found out first?
It came in a call. We found out together. We knew he applied, but it was like, okay, is he going to start this coming month, or is he going to start in 6 months? Is there going to be a space for him? All of those things were very unsure. And I could feel myself in those 3 weeks of just preparing, like, okay, this can happen, right? Let's prepare. Let's get everything ready so that if it happens, it turns around, and we got to get this, get you out the door. But no matter how much that physical preparation and the mental rush preparation, there was the emotional part of me that I was kind of like, okay, I'll deal with you, kind of like a little kid, sit in the corner until I'm ready to deal with you. And so when that came up, it was just like a flood of emotion of like, oh my gosh, here it is. Am I ready to do this? My baby boy is an adult overnight, and he needs to make this decision, and this is good for him. And it's going to be eventually good for me as well. And I'm going to get online with this, but bringing my emotions along, that delay, of just all the feelings. I won't say sadness or fear or overwhelm or excitement, all of them all together at one time, and just going, okay, hold on. I see you all right there, and in my breath, that was that moment, that turning point for me. Oh, I'm still here. I'm
Where
still
did the
in
call happen?
the call.
Yeah. Well, you got the call. You both found out. Where was that? What room or place did that occur in?
Oh, we were in our kitchen. We were in the kitchen, and it was, I think he was probably at his computer on the kitchen table and doing the work and saying, oh, okay, it looks like the portal might be open, and let me see. And oh, there's nothing coming on. Okay, let me make this call. So we were just sitting there at the kitchen table.
Okay. Describe your kitchen. What time of day was this?
Well, I moved. So my kitchen is no longer my kitchen. A lot has changed. It was shortly after breakfast, maybe late morning, 10 a.m., 10:30. My kitchen is small. We have a small little 3-bedroom apartment, which I just moved out of. And in the beautiful town in Arcadia, a nice little homely, semi-suburban town of Los Angeles, known for peacocks, wild peacocks, and gardens, and a racehorse track. So all, just a nice little homely place.
Was there a beautiful moment after where maybe you saw your son off in college? I know this is still a pretty recent one, but were you, because of your ability to regulate yourself, you experienced some closeness or some more freedom or some gratitude for getting through this process? What was a moment on the other side for you?
Yeah, it's happening like daily, but just day before yesterday, in fact, after the long weekend, he had come home to visit, and I'd driven him back, and it was like so much storm here in Southern California. They were having this flood watch. Don't get on the roads, and we have a 2-hour drive. And we came over the big hill in the traffic, and there was this beautiful moment where just right above his university, it was bright and sunny, blue skies, and the mountains in a distance were, you could see they were snow covered because of the rain. And it was beautiful, and it was warm. It was just like soft to the touch. And when I dropped him, it was just very sweet. We spent a little time, bonding, and just like seeing that joy in his face. Also a little bit of I'll say it, a little bit of like, it's still new, the nervousness, maybe the unsurety from him and from me, but also there was the sweetness of like, this is what you're here to do, and this is what you're passionate about, and this is your opportunity. And I think I just smiled on my drive home in the 2 hours back into the rain. But there's beautiful sunset on my way back home too, and I just felt gratitude. I felt overall gratitude for this opportunity, not just for him and his future, but for me right now. That was really it. It was this freeing moment of, okay, Mama, you did everything to, for both of you guys to this point, and now it's like in the hands of, of the other, like, and the unknown, and it's beautiful and all around.
I love it. Rubina, would you like to hear your story?
Yes.
I can remember one of so many moments that life throws at you to test you, to keep you present, to keep you awake. And even though I've studied and practiced and mastered all of the concepts that I'm going to share with you today, I still find myself challenged. I can remember not too long ago receiving a call that would change my life and my son's life. In a matter of a few weeks, he applied and was accepted to college. And I remember standing there in one late morning just after breakfast at our kitchen table. His computer was open and he could start to see that he could access some of the portals, some of the things were working. And he called and the call came through and he got accepted. And so much of me was happy for him. But at the same time, I felt this constriction because my boy, who I'd been living with all of these years, who I had learned to love so much, who I had built so much of my life around in this 3-bedroom apartment that we both lived in, was now going to be leaving. I look around this kitchen and wonder how much of this stuff is going to stick around. I look up through the bedrooms and see his bedroom that's now going to be packed up and moved away. He's lucky. I should be grateful. I shouldn't let myself get in the way, but I keep finding my own emotional self rising up and trying to rage against this. All of the different kinds of feelings washing over me time and time again. I want to be happy, and something's keeping me from it. And I take a breath and I realize that this is yet another opportunity to step back, to move, to become present again. And this is where exactly what I've been learning and doing has come in handy so many times. A way to get out of my mind without getting angry at it. A way to have simple things of creative expression to get me back through the motions without needing an outcome. Easy, available entry points that I could remember and access at any moment and move through emotions. So many of us are going through so many of these things. And I smiled and allowed it and supported him on this most incredible journey. A few weeks later, when he was off in college, he came back for a visit, and I can remember driving him back through a storm where there were lots of warnings of uncertainties. I can remember coming over this big hill and seeing the college off in the distance, bright and sunny, blue skies, mountains in the distance. And I remember dropping him off and seeing the joy on his face, but also seeing a little bit of nervousness in himself as well. And I was so glad for my ability to stay present with me so that I could be strong and supportive of him, because he was doing exactly what he needed to be doing in life. And that was what I was needed to be doing. I drive back home and saw an amazing sunset and felt so much gratitude for this opportunity. You know, so many of you out there, you're facing these same opportunities every day in your business, in your jobs, and your relationships. And too often we miss the treasures that are presented to us in this moment by trying to avoid the feeling of a few emotions that pass quickly. But there's so much opportunity on the other side of those emotions. And there are simple, powerful ways to get you to access that. And now more than ever, we need to get out of our minds and into our bodies to be able to lead the way we want to lead and create the way we want to create. And in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to teach you how to do just that.
I feel so seen. Thank you.
Well done. Do you see opportunities to share stories like that for your clients or on additional podcasts or anywhere else?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
Well, it's been wonderful exploring and serving you in this today. Rubina, where can we go to learn more about you? And do you have any closing thoughts for us today?
You can find me on, excuse me. You can find me online at theinnerdesign.com. Instagram, I'm at theofficialrubina. And my closing thoughts are really, I think I learned something today about that presence that I've been sharing. When you're seen from another person's eyes, how much we need each other in community and how much we are growing as humanity towards our own evolved, beautiful selves, beautiful lives. Thank you for having me here, Kyle. This was really amazing.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Story Engine podcast.